Hi, my name is Kristen Boddy and I'm an IELTS teacher at Viva College in Brisbane. Today in Spotlight on IELTS we're talking about the IELTS Writing Test. We're focusing on the general test and we're looking at Task 1. So for those of you that study the general test, you know that you have to write some kind of letter in Task 1. It will either be a formal letter or an informal letter. Typically formal letters are to people that you don't know, to managers, to people that are responsible for courses, to people in business, and you might be writing a letter of complaint, you might be writing a letter of inquiry, you might be writing a letter of thanks, or maybe you need to change the registration details for something. These are the kinds of letters that you'll need to write in a formal register. If you're writing an informal register, it will generally be a letter to a friend. So I have a couple of tips that I'd like to give you that are based on some of the main problems that my students tend to have when they're writing these kind of letters. Unfortunately, a lot of students tend to think that because it's a letter, it's easy and that they don't need to plan their answers. This is not true. Even though you're writing a letter, it's very important to think very carefully about the language that you're using and the information that you're including in the letter itself. So, here are my tips. The first one is when you choose your register, choose carefully. So if you're writing a formal letter, that will determine the kind of language that you're able to use, obviously. You're not able to use contractions in a formal letter. So for example, rather than saying I'm, you need to say I am. Can't, cannot, don't, do not. The second thing is that you can't use slang or really casual language. You have to be very polite. Thirdly, formal language usually focuses on noun phrases rather than verb phrases. So for example, rather than saying thank you, you can say I'd like to offer my thanks, in which case thanks is a noun. Finally, the use of modal verbs is really important in formal writing. What do I mean by modal verbs? I mean verbs like would and could. So for example, in an informal letter, you can say to a friend, can you help me? And that's fine. But in a formal letter, you might say something like, I would like to know if you would be able to help me. Could you assist me with this inquiry? Which is much more polite. The next important thing to remember is that you need to expand each of the points in the question with appropriate details. In this task, you need to write 150 words, and many students find it difficult to write that number of words because they just answer each point in the question very briefly. When you are making your plan before you start writing, think about the kind of details that would be relevant for the task at hand. For example, if you're writing because you can't attend a course and you want to change the dates, you need to be specific about when the course was going to be held, which date, at which time, in which location, and when you would like to do it again, which date, which time, and in which location. Don't be vague, don't be general, be specific. The final piece of advice is make sure you open and close your letter appropriately. Now, in the actual instructions, they will tell you how they would like you to start your letter. Usually it's with the word dear, but it may be dear sir or madam. If they give you a specific phrase that you need to use, you must begin your letter with that phrase. If you don't, you will lose marks. And then, of course, you need to open with an appropriate greeting. If you're writing to somebody that you know, usually we greet them with, hi, how are you? I hope you're doing well. Long time no see. Sorry I haven't been in touch. If you're writing a formal letter, you usually start with the reason why you're writing. Dear sir or madam, I'm writing with regards to regarding blah, 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 blah. So it's really important that you start appropriately. Likewise, when you're closing a letter to a friend, often you give some sort of reason for finishing the letter, like, anyway, I need to run, the dishes won't do themselves, or anyway, hope to hear from you soon, take care, bye. If you're writing a formal letter, we often finish with, Many thanks for your attention. I hope to hear from you soon. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you require further information. Yours sincerely, regards, and then your full name. If you don't open and close your letter with these appropriate beginnings and endings, it will seem very unnatural. Let's recap what we've just talked about. It's important that you choose your register carefully, and your register will determine the kind of language that you've used. No contractions, no slang, focusing on noun phrases and modal verbs in a formal register. Secondly, make sure you expand all of your points appropriately. Give details, don't be vague or general. And finally, make sure that you open and close your letters with the correct kinds of phrases that are appropriate for either a formal or an informal letter. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions or would like to make some comments, please leave them in the comments section below. My name is Kristen Boddy. I'm an English teacher at Viva College in Brisbane, and I hope that you'll join us again next time for Spotlight on IELTS. Have a good day. Bye.